Hello YouTube, this is Kat from Set Free and Pass, and today, being the final day of April, I'm going to go through my Evil Twin Live Twin deck profile for the month. So as you've seen on the channel, I've put a deck profile for February, March, so I thought I'd give a new one to show what I've been using in April. So what I'm going to do is, like with all my videos, is I'm going to break it down into the deck itself, which is going to be the monsters, the spells and traps, hand traps, and the extra deck. So let's begin. So starting with monsters. So the monsters will look very familiar to you if you've watched any of the two videos. So run 3 Leelas. So as with always, I find that Leela is the most important of the two to start with. The reason being that you want to go into Frost as quickly as possible to get that draw, and Leela allows you to do that. So this is with the card I'll try and search for and hopefully get in my first hand. Then 3 keys to kill. Pretty standard because of the fact, again, like Leela, starting for your plays, be able to search out either Leela or keys to kill or Frost or Treat, depending on which one it is. And obviously then gets you to 2 monsters that start your link plays going into your Evil Twins. I still run 2 Frosts. I've seen over the course of this month that people have been looking at dropping this down to 1. I still find that to be a bit of a mistake because I find the consistency that you'll get from having 2 of these outweighs the benefits of having that extra space because of the additional draw. So if you have got a situation where you do have to remove one of these from your deck, then potentially you could remove this one. I still would say stick with that 2. Run 1 Treat. As with all my other deck profiles, generally it's only as the extender, and in the rare occasion where the effect does come up, I mean, it's not going to win you many games, but being able to reduce a monster's attack because the difference of the damage that you take on one of your, so for example, I take with a 2400 monster onto one of your Evil Twins, those 1200, which can be the difference between a game in some cases or just getting over a bigger monster. And running the Evil Twins, Kizuki and Leela, because of the fact that with your Trouble Sunny, you want to have the card in your deck to be able to send off to pop a card without it being targeting. Or alternatively, as I've said before, there are times where bringing this out can win you games as well, but it's just good to have that in the deck. Let's go into the spells. So, you have to run 3 Sunny Snitch because it's the rotor of the deck. I haven't seen any profiles, and I'll never see a profile that thinks you should run less than 3 of these cards, unless for some bizarre reason in the ban list they restrict this, which I can never see happening because this deck isn't a problem. It just starts your deck, and the fact that you get the burn and the life gain effects just for basically your opponent playing cards while you have an Evil Twin on the field, on its own can win games. And I've had many a situation where you've got your opponent down to potentially, it just starts your deck, and the fact that you get the burn and the life gain effects just for basically your opponent playing cards while you have an Evil Twin on the field, on its own can win games. Running 3 secret passwords still, because it is the rotor for the rotor, and also allows you to search out your Evil Twin. So if you do, in the rare occasion, need to bring your Evil Twin Leela Kizuki, you have the option to do that. But again, running this allows you to go into your Sunny Snitch, or alternatively, I still run the 2 home, if I can find the second home. This is also another card where I've seen people dropping this down to 1. I've also seen other deck profiles where they're running 3, where I think 3 is a bit overkill and 1 just isn't enough. Due to the consistency of this deck and just having the option to play through hand traps, having 2 of these I find to be optimal. You are discarding the cards, but the fact of the matter is, if you're discarding the cards to get one of your live twins on the field to start your plays, Forbidden Droplet. So Forbidden Droplet, I've had my other profiles before, but again, it works really well with this deck because of the fact that, for example, you play Kill Leela. Your opponent then uses an effect like Ash or Effect Veiler to negate it. You use Forbidden Droplet, send this, you can then summon your Kizuki. Because Kizuki is the only monster on the field, you then get another Leela monster onto the field. So it gets around those kind of hand traps as you do with this card. But this card at this moment in time is essential in most decks because of the fact that we know what the Spear is going around at the moment. You also have your Adventure package, which is also a big issue. And also with this deck, because hand traps are a huge issue, Cross-Set Detonator. And again, this hasn't changed since my other profiles. I still find this deck to benefit from this card because of the fact that if you do get hand traps at the wrong time, you just cannot play the game. And with a deck that that does suffer with that, having Cross-Set Detonator in here, because of the fact you are able to draw cards quite freely in this deck, it just means that basically you have that little bit of protection. It also stops your opponent playing the game if they have got hand traps or so on. And if they are playing hand traps, I do still run 2 Triple Tactics talents, because at the end of the day is, if your opponent does want to hand trap you and you do get round it, or whatever the situation is, you've got the ability to draw 2 cards, take control of a monster, or rip a card from the hand, which is always going to be beneficial, especially in this kind of day and age where your opponent is usually going to be playing monster effects during your turn. This kind of a card is essential, especially in a deck like this. Cool with the grave because stopping hand traps, and also getting rid of cards out of your opponent's graveyard. Cards like Phoenix Enforcer still are a huge issue for this deck, and having this gets you round that when it goes into the grave. And for my draw, and I still stand by it as part of Avarice, because of the fact this deck goes through so many monster cards so very quickly, you're guaranteed to be able to play this, not only from your evil twins from your extra deck going into the grave, but also your live twins and your hand traps, which I'll go into in more detail shortly. So the hand traps is the bit where I've had the most amount of change, because the meta has changed quite drastically with the Death Spear decks now being quite prevalent, especially at the end of the April month. So I now run 2 Ash Blossoms rather than the 3. Because of the fact I do have issues with such as Adventure and so on, I still feel that having 2 of these are important, because your opponent will search their deck quite rapidly, but it's not the biggest issue. And because it's been very generic, I think that you can get away with having 2. The bit I have now changed is I now use Phantasme. I now use 3 of these. Now, this is my personal choice in my local meta, so therefore I find that basically with this, I'm always going to be in a situation where my opponent has 2 on the field. So therefore, I'm going to be able to draw multiple cards, and that leads me through my deck quite quickly. Also having a huge monster on the board with 2400 and 1800 with the ability to do some destruction is majorly important. It also gets me into my plays, but I find this deck, because it gets my deck through, goes through my deck quicker, it helps me quite greatly. So I've added this in, as I've said, depending on your local meta, this might not be the card, but this is what I've been using myself. I still use 2 Ghost Ogres because the Adventure package is a thing, and also Dragon Link is also another issue. So obviously got rid of the field spell with this, which usually stops their play dead. So therefore, find this is still mandatory, and also with Cross-Set Detonator helps from that perspective. Now, I was just running 1 of these before, but I now run 3 Nibiru. I've seen the error of my ways with this card, because I was using it more with my Cross-Set Detonator to stop it being used against me. But let's face facts, the meta as it is now, your opponents generally will summon more than 5 monsters in a turn. And if they're not, it's because they're using a deck specifically, whether or not it's a pure Eldritch deck, which this card's not going to come up at all anyway. So you've got to take the good with the bad, but I find that when I have this in my hand, your opponent has to play around it. As soon as they have it, they'll play around it, which in a deck like this, if they're having to minimize their plays and go into less optimal because they're worried about this card, fantastic, because it means I can play the game. Also because of the fact that, as I mentioned before, I get hurt really badly by Nibiru, so Cross-Set Detonator with this card is amazing. So therefore, if I do get rid of 1, I've got the other 2 in my deck to back me up from that perspective as well. I do still run Artifact Scythe, because it's not banned yet. I do expect that basically in May this will come out, and if it doesn't, I think we all agree there's a bit of a problem here. But there again, we've been waiting on 30 to go for God knows how long, and that hasn't happened. So Scythe is here because of the fact that the Scythe Luck is still fantastic, especially in the Despia formats, and I play against the likes of Prank Kids and so on. It's a little bit of a sorry situation when I go up against a Floods deck, which Bit has been playing quite recently, but I mean, other than that situation, the card works fantastically. I also run 2 Veilers. This is no different to before. I think I ran only 1 before, but now I run 2 because of the fact, again, effects on the field. I find this is more effective because of the fact I can play it from my hand. So if I do draw into this with Yugioh, I can play it during my opponent's turn. Which I can't say for Infinite Impermanence, which is why I run it as 1. This is one I've been going up and down between 1 and 2, but never 3. But I use this mainly as a cross-out target if need be. But if I do get into my hand during my first turn or whatever that is, then obviously it's got a fantastic effect. But I find that basically, if I do, well, 9 times out of 10 when I do get it, I draw it during my opponent's turn through Yugioh, which means I'm just sitting there with a card go, well, what am I going to do with this? So obviously, hit and miss. And then I won 1 Ghost Spell. This has gone up from 1 to 2 to 3 throughout the month, and at this moment in time, I'm at 1, only because the space within the deck is a bit tight. I'm at 43 cards, I believe. I'll have to double check the numbers. I'll write a quote if I'm wrong. But it's very difficult to say that this isn't a fantastic card in this current meta, and this is why it's been such a debate to go between 1 and 3. But at the moment, I have run it as 1 in this one. But if I did put it in here, if I go to 44 cards, which I think, as I say, is 43, then obviously not the end of the world, but fantastic in terms of utilization. Also can use it across out destiny if someone tries using it to like my effects in Brave. So therefore, from that perspective, yeah, that's all the hand traps. So I'm going to go into the extra deck. Free Yugioh. No one's even going to tell me to do any different. I've been running as free Yugioh since this time last year. So in 2021, when the deck was released, one of the first things I did when I came back into the game with Bit was I started this deck. I got 3 of these cards, and this deck has always had 3 of these cards, whether or not it's been in this version or Unchained or Eldritch, whatever it is. There's always been 3 of this card because of the fact that during your first turn, if you are going first, you're always going to go into this. And during any of your opponent's turns, you're going to go into this to get Leela from your grave. So you're always going to need to get this card out from your extra deck, which is why you need to have 3. That, and as my last 2 months have shown, I still run 2 Leelas, and I still stand by the fact that if you do get into a situation where you need one, that's why I run Avarice, because I can put them back in. But you're always, after the first time you get this card out, it's just going to be in the grave. You're always going to bring out this. You are never going to need to bring this out for this and any other point later in the game, unless you're really, really ahead. Because if your opponent has a 3 field where you can do that and start attacking because you're after turn 1, 2, or 3 or whatever, you're in such a good situation because your opponent basically is top decking. So you can do this, and that's a luxury. But in a normal game, you're going to end up having to pop your opponent's cards, which means you're going to have to go into the Yugioh from your extra deck to go into this from your grave. And if you lose the one in your grave, then you've got the one in your extra deck as backup. You always run free Trouble Sunny. Why do you always run free Trouble Sunny? Because, as I've mentioned before, during most turns, you're going to go into 2 of these. So during your turn, you're going to go into your Yugioh and your Leela, to obviously pop a card. You're then going to go into your Trouble Sunny. Trouble Sunny is going to attack. You're then going to bring out these 2, and then you're going to bring out another Trouble Sunny in your deck. And that means that you've already used up 2. Yeah, well, essentially you're going to get through 3 of these within 2 turns quite easily, unless you're in a lot of trouble. So yeah, you always need to run 3 of these. And being such a big beater and the ability to use the Evil Twin Yugioh Leela monster from your actual deck to pop without targeting also is fantastic with this. So you're always going to run this as 3 regardless. If you're not, there's something wrong. As I mentioned before, because of the fact when you go into your Evil Twins, you're locked into Fiends. So there's no access code because of the fact I wasn't using that. I have seen access code going into deck profiles, and again, I think that's wrong because unless you're in a situation where you can start going into other players outside of your evil twins, you're usually in a bad spot because you've either run out. So you're going to be in a situation where in most turns you're going to go through that cycle, which means you're going to be locked into fiends. So access code isn't going to be useful. If you can go around that, then obviously that's your preference. That's why I still stick with Unchained Abomination, because of the fact that it's a fiend and does a lot of destruction. It destroys when you destroy a card. It destroys at the end of each turn. What's not to like about that? I haven't got a Underworld Goddess, but that would be one of the cards I potentially might add into here because again, it's a fiend, but I haven't got one. So that's a moot point, but that might be another option. But again, I use Dagda. So as I mentioned before, this you can't go into your evil twin lines before Dagda because of the fact it's not a fiend. So you need to go into this first. But as I mentioned previously, that's not a big issue because of the fact if you start off with one of your live twins, bring out another live twin, go into this. If you've got home, you can bring out a live twin from your deck, which means you can then go into your plays nice and easy, and then you have your scythe lock. Use one unicorn because unicorn's unicorn. Free destruction. What's more to say about that? I also use one dark charmer, and again, as I've mentioned before, you would use this instead of your live twin plays. But it's mainly because of the fact I really don't like Phoenix Enforcer, and I enjoy taking my opponent's Phoenix Enforcer and seeing their faces you start using against them. And then obviously you can start going to your plays because then you can link it off and if you need to, or whatever you want to do. And again, you go into home and then you go into your link plays if that's what you want to do. And then I've got the Zeus package, so I still stick by Cavalry, Downed, and Zeus because Zeus is Zeus. What else are I going to say about that? And I still feel that Cavalry is far more useful because of the fact with a huge amount of attack points, because of the fact it can't be destroyed by battle. I don't usually find many situations where that doesn't get through to the end result I want to. Because of the fact 2 live twins equals a Cavalry, which equals a Downed, which equals a Zeus. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. So yeah, that was the my deck profile for April 2022. So as I said before, this will potentially change again next month when the new ban list hopefully shows its face, and will hopefully give this deck a little bit more of a helping hand in terms of by bringing some of the other decks down a bit. But if you enjoyed this profile and enjoy any of our content, as I said before, we're looking to grow. So any comments, we hopefully try and respond back to comments as people have seen. If anyone's got any advice in terms of anything in terms of the video, any feedback, or if they want any videos coming up or any updates to some of the other videos, I could do another combo video for this, but I don't think there's any real need. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Hopefully you enjoyed the new work we've been doing in terms of the new logo and so on. But yeah, this is Kat from Set Frame Pass, and hope you have a good day and hope you enjoyed the new ban list when it comes out, and catch you all later. Okay, bye.